And welcome back to another episode of Born to Talk About Sports. I am your host, Steve Bourne. Morning, this is Friday, December the 15th. And quick recap of what happened in the world of sports last night before I go on my tangent for the day. Start the NHL when the Toronto Maple Leafs down 5-0. A few weak goals, some bad defensive play. Pulled off what I've read is the biggest third period comeback in franchise history. Matthews scores 2 in 40 seconds to send it to overtime. And naturally, the Leafs did the most Leaf thing possible. They lost it overtime. Hard fought point. Tells you something about the character that they didn't roll over when they had every excuse in the book to roll over. So credit for the Leafs for the comeback. Matthews with goals number 22-23 has put him one ahead now of Brock Besser for the goal scoring lead in the NHL. Speaking of Brock Besser, the Vancouver Canucks, last night was a big night for them. They honored Roberto Luongo, put him up on their Wall of Fame, Level of Excellence, Ring of Honor, whatever they call it. And naturally, with Luongo dropping the ceremonial puck, it was the goalies that took the face-off, which I thought was kind of fun, kind of different, and fits Luongo, Roberto Luongo style to a T. If you follow him on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, whatever Elon's decided to call it today, he doesn't tweet much, but he's a fun one, to say the least. He's a bit of a character, like most goalies are. But with the Florida Panthers, that's their second straight game where they've been shut out 4-0. They've even in the playoffs last year, they after they beat Boston and facing Toronto and Carolina, they weren't much of an offensive juggernaut. And with all that firepower with Barkov and Kachuk and Ekblad on the back end, Sam Bennett. So they've dipped to third in the Atlantic now. Toronto has passed them with the overtime loss last night. So and Detroit isn't that far behind. So Florida better learn how to put the puck in the net, or this could start a bit of a scary slide this time in the year. And I'm gonna talk about the Blues and the Senators in a bit because that's gonna go into my rant for today. But quickly go into the NFL. 62-21 Raiders over the Chargers. Staley, the coach of the Chargers, it's clear that the team has given up on him. Really surprised he wasn't fired at halftime when they were down 42-0 or 42-7, I believe it was. The Chargers, a lot of people had hopes for after making the playoffs last year. Absolutely terrible this year. I mean, even with or without Justin Herbert, that team is absolutely terrible. I really don't know what to say about that. Obviously, a coaching change is going to happen. I mean, there's no point in doing it now with the Chargers only having 3 games left in the regular season, but definitely a move in LA is coming in. It's not with the Rams. Pretty quiet night in the NBA last night. Some history could be made tonight if the 76ers do what they're supposed to do and beat the absolutely embarrassing to professional sports Detroit Pistons. Pistons are, if they don't win, that's 22 straight losses, which franchise record, and we're getting close to NBA record territory here. I went on about it the other day. Something's got to be done in Detroit. Hell, even in San Antonio as well. You could potentially have 2 20-game losing streaks at the same time in the NBA if the Spurs don't win one of their next two. Don't win one of their next two, which is actually kind of scary. I mean, that's a quarter of your entire season. That's almost equivalent of Major League Baseball for 40-game losing streak. Like I said, I feel sorry for the fans of those teams because you're not wearing any of that merchandise right now because you've got no reason to. I mean, Wembanyama sold a lot of jerseys, but right now, if you're in the San Antonio, Houston area right now, are you really wearing it proudly? Yeah, I highly doubt it. But going into talking about the Ottawa-St. Louis game last night, St. Louis just fired Craig Berube, brought in their coach from the AHL. And normally you get that bounce after a coach gets fired. And usually, I mean, look at Edmonton, look at Minnesota. those teams have rebounded nicely since the coaching change. St. Louis, I honestly didn't think Berube deserved to be fired because their roster, frankly, isn't all that impressive. There's only maybe one or two guys left from the Stanley Cup team from 2019. There's, I mean, I don't know what was to expect of this Blues team. I don't think anybody had them in the playoffs. Certainly not me. That Central Division's brutal. Minnesota was good last year. You got Colorado, you've got Dallas. Winnipeg is playing with motivation now that they were able to sign Scheifele and keep Scheifele and Hellebuck, and then they just extended Nito Niederreiter. So they're playing, and Kyle Connor before the knee injury was playing out of his mind. So that Central Division was tough, is going to be tough anyways, and also the Nashville Predators, despite sometimes having offensive struggles, they still have one of the best goalies in the game in Jussi Saros, and one of the best defensemen in the game, Roman Josi. So the Predators are never an easy out. So if you just look up and down the Central, hell, even the Arizona Coyotes are much improved. They're starting to come back down to earth just a little bit, but no, they're still not an easy out as well. So I don't know what Doug Armstrong, GM of the Blues, was expecting. But anyways, Craig Berube gets fired. In St. Louis, first game under the new head coach, beats Ottawa 4-2. But believe it or not, that's not my rant. My rant is what's happening about 5 hours north of me in Ottawa. How many years can they say, oh, the rebuild's over, we plan to compete? This is the third year in a row, 1, 2, 3, that they've said, okay, we are going to compete. And third year in a row, they're at the bottom of the league. Not solely their fault right now because they've played the fewest amount of games in the league. They've only played like 21, 22 games, where most of the league has played 26 to 28 games. But still, this team is not good. Corpuscello looks like it's going to be the new Jack Campbell signing. He's been absolutely terrible for them. The defense has battled injuries, but honestly, Leafs defense is just as brutal for longer, and they're still in it. I really don't know what else to say about with the Senators right now, except they as much as apparently they love DJ Smith, it's clearly not working for them. They haven't taken the next step like a lot of people, including me. I actually had Ottawa in the playoffs this year. I know, as a Leaf fan, wanting Ottawa to succeed again, I know I took a shower too, just dirt didn't come off. And when you've got firepower like Tarasenko, like Brady Tkachuk, Jake Sanderson on the back end, Tim Stützle waiting to take the next step, and nothing. I mean, again, something's got to be done in Ottawa. And listening to Jeff Merrick on Sportsnet yesterday, he brought up the point that probably the only reason DJ Smith hasn't been fired is because they have an interim GM. But at some point, though, when the fans after every loss are chanting "Fire DJ," you got to almost just basically old yeller them and just almost a bit of a mercy fire at this point. I remember when Ron Wilson was the coach of the Leafs back, good Lord, probably I guess about 10 years ago or so now, before Boudreau. Or not Boudreau, Carlisle, Randy Carlisle. Brian Burke, after a bad loss, the fans are chanting "Fire Wilson." Leafs lose the next game on the road, and Burke fires his college buddy Ron Wilson. And he simply said, when the fans chant "Fire the coach," it's not fair to the coach. It's not fair to the fans. I know the fans a lot of time, you shouldn't let the fans dictate how you're going to do things. But if it gets to the point where it becomes uncomfortable for the coach and the players, you have to pull the mercy trigger. And I think that's what Ottawa should do with DJ Smith. Not saying he's a good coach. He obviously, the players love him. He's a good players coach. But he can't get the team to the next level. I wouldn't be surprised if actually Ottawa already called St. Louis and asking for permission to talk to Craig Berube. I think Berube would be great for Ottawa because he did in 2019 take the Blues to the next level. Sure, it helped Jordan Binnington stood on his head. Ryan O'Reilly played like a man possessed in the playoffs. But still, he knew what to get out of these certain players who were playing below their potential. And I think that's what you're getting in Ottawa right now. Is you got guys who need that coach to take him to the next level, and I think that's what Ottawa needs. As a Leaf fan, I want to see the Sens succeed because it makes the Battle of Ontario that much better. I mean, we're never going to get the days of Tucker jumping the bench against Daniel Alfredson and the Senators, or Alfie fake throwing the stick, or Chara ragdolling Brian McCabe, or anything like that. We're never going to get those days back, so forget about those. But still, hard competitive Leaf Sens games. As a hockey fan, I love to see them. So and that's why I do want Ottawa to succeed. Plus, more Canadian teams in the playoffs is always a good thing, especially for Sportsnet and and the CBC. So that's why I mean, like I said, I always hate seeing I want this guy to lose their job because that's not the case. This is more of I want the Senators to take the next level, and I think making a coaching change definitely could help. Craig Berube is definitely one of the coaches I'd look at. Also, former Rangers coach Gerard Gallant is somebody they probably should look at. I'm sure there's other coach in Belleville in their AHL affiliate might could have a shot at it as well. But I think with Ottawa, they do need a proven coach to take these guys to the next level, to show them what it takes to get to the Stanley Cup final, or even potentially win it. Because right now, the team is a mess. You can look at Brady Tkachuk over the last couple of days. He's beyond frustrated. With the incident with the penalty shot against Carolina and then last night against St. Louis, I think he is out of his wits end as well. So that's what I'm saying. I know no one from Ottawa is probably watching this, but Mr. Steos, I think it is time to pull the trigger on DJ Smith. Even if you can't get Berube or Gallant here in time, just promote one of your assistants to an interim for the rest of the year. Not much more to say going into Friday night. Like I say, outside of maybe watching the Sixers humiliate the Pistons one more time and see if the Raptors can actually do something scary and win two in a row. Yeah, I know I'm goosebumps, feel them. But other than that, it should for the most part quiet night. Could be a quiet night around sports, or you could have a team in the NHL down 5 at home somehow pull off a massive comeback. You could have a 40-point comeback in the NBA. You never know. That's the beauty of sports. Up until tomorrow, stay safe out there and happy holidays.